Right, so this is the second part of the Lua getting user input. We've already got the name and an age, which we sorted out. It's now asking how tall. So obviously a floating point number is being requested here. It's actually at the point where it says how tall are you, so that means we're already inside the process input, and we are probably we've just put this line here. User input is IO read trim, so that's what is asking how tall are you. We've already determined that we can put in a if we put in an empty, just hit the enter key, it'll give us an error about not putting a correct input. We've also found out that if we put in well, let's try putting 10 in. So if I put 10 in there and press enter, then data type is float this time because we're looking for a floating point number. So we have got user input as 10, so obviously this first one is not going to be caught, and then we're going down to if the data type is int or float, and then it will change it to a number. So let's F10 down until we can get to this. There we are. So we're now on 1, 2, 3. So user input at the moment is 10 in inverted commas. If I press F10, we'll say that user input will not convert to a number, so it has the default value of nil. So this is the way Lua works. It doesn't error when you're trying to convert a string into a number. It just gives you nil, which is like a non-value. It's the same as Python's none and C#'s null. It's a non-valid value. It doesn't mean anything, which is quite useful because you can use that. So no errors thrown up, but we know if the user input equals nil, which it is now, then we can throw this error message row NaN, which is not a number. So if I press F10, it's going to drop in to 126 and launch that error message. So we'll go there, and then NaN is here, which will say try entering a number. So let's press F10 until we get to that point. There we are. So it's now on line 65. It's going to change that message into that. So let's press F10, and the message now reads try entering a number. 10 doesn't cut it. Okay, and then as before, it'll clear everything, get it back to where we were. So let's press again, it's asking how tall I am. This time we'll put in 1 point, it doesn't really matter, let's put in 1.7, that'll do, and then press enter. And this time we should get through and validate the data. So it's currently checking, is the data type string? No, the data type is float, so we'll F10 out of that one. We're down here now. We're checking the length of the input. That's all right. Is the data type Boolean? No. Is the data type int or float? Yes. We're now going to convert, or try and convert it, which is about to happen now. I'm on line 1, 2, 3. User input equals 2 numbers. So user input is currently, if I can get this to sit on the right place, 1.7. If I press F10, we can now put it back on there, and its value is 1.7, not in quotes. So that's actually a real number now. User input is obviously not nil, so this one will not error. We're now checking whether it's we were checking an integer, which we're not. So we can now finally come down to 132, and the valid input, which is currently false, if I press F10 and just hover the mouse back over, is now true. So this will jump out of the loop and it will accept our input there. So let's press the green button. So it's accepted the height. This is the Boolean values. It's asking yes or no. Do we like Python? So we've kind of done all this stuff up the top here. It's now going to come to this part here where the data type is bool. So let's go straight for that. We can close that off. I will type in a yes here, press the enter key, and that should bring us to, where are we? There we are. Right, so it's on the data type equals string, false. So let's press F10. So I just restarted that and got to the point where it says, do you like Python? I put in yes, pressed enter. It's now stopped at this line here. So it confirms the data type is Boolean. The user input is yes, and it's is the user input substring equal to y, which obviously it is. Then the user input is now changed, or will be changed. At the moment it's yes, but that's going to be changed to true and valid input. So if I press F10 now, and again, then valid input is true, and that will return user input, which is now also true, back out of the function here. So if we press F10, and then we put user likes Python equals true down here. So that's got through to everything except the menu. So that's our next thing. So if we press F10, then we sleep for a couple of seconds. Now Lua doesn't have a time built-in thing like Python does, where you can go time.sleep. So we have to kind of work round it. There's various methods of doing it, but this one works quite well. Is you use the operating system clock and add seconds or a certain amount of time to it. So it kind of approximates the passing of time. It's not brilliant, but it does work. So let's press F10 and that should get out of that very quickly. Yep, there we are. So again, we're going to clear the console, and now we're going to do this menu scheme. If I just show you what it looks like when it's running, there we go. So we've got bar across the top. What do you think of this utility? Bar underneath, then the 4 selections, and then a bar at the bottom. So that's what we're going to be drawing down here. So we're clearing the console, which I will skip. I'll press F10. It's going to add the 25 lines. So we'll come out of that here, and you'll see this shooting up there as I press the green arrow. Right, so we're about to start drawing this menu, as you see on the console here. So we're just at the point of starting that keyboard.menu function. So we're passing in the title. I just get my mouse over it there. So the title is, what do you think of this utility? Then we've got a list of 4 items. Brilliant, not bad, could do better, or rubbish. The row is -1 and the window width is 100. So we're next checking to make sure that the title has got an even number of letters by just doing this. I won't call it I can't remember. Is it modulo? Yes, modulo. We're trying to find out whether if you divide its length by 2, you have 1 remaining or 0. If it's 1 remaining, you know you've got an odd number. So if it is an odd number, we'll add an extra space to it. So let's run F10 on that. It obviously wasn't an odd number. We're just checking out the rows, and now we want to find the maximum length of the string. So if I bring this back in, so that string is a particular length, these will be of a particular length, and we want to try and make this look neat. So what I do is to try and find the longest of these strings, that is between the title and any of the elements that we're going to be drawing, any of the menu items. take the longest one and then add some spaces to the side here and here to center it, and of course some spaces here just to make this look as neat as possible so that you've got this decent box. So that's sort of a little bit of calculating on what are we doing to work that out. So to find the maximum length, first of all we produce this local variable called max length, and we set it to the length of the title. So that's already gone past, we're on 2, 3, 4, so if I hover over max length it tells me it's 30. So the title is 30 characters in length. What do you think of this utility? Then we're going through each of the items in our list, which if I can hover over it there, is showing you the brilliant, not bad, could do better, rubbish, checking each one, including the length plus this additional 9 characters to make up for the space here, the number, the bracket, and so on. So we're just taking that into account, and then whatever the maximum one is will be at the end of it. And then we're going to add on top of the max length, let's just go through that, make sure we've got, get F10 on here. There we go. Whatever the maximum length is at this stage, we can add another 30 to it, so that we've got a total overall length of, in this case, 60. So if this was shorter, we would have had let's say that was 20 characters, we're adding 30 each side, 15 each side, so we added 30 altogether, so we would have had a shorter, narrower one, but I think that one looks quite neat having it that sort of size. So we're then going to check whether the max length is greater than the width of the window, which, if I can just hover that over there, I think was 80, or no, it was 100. Yeah, 100. So we're just making sure that we don't exceed the width of the console if it's in a console. So, of course, it doesn't really matter in here because it's not. So we'll press F10 again to get past those. And again, with the maximum length, just checking to make sure it's an even number. Then we're going to create a filler, which is using string repeats, which is quite handy. So you can repeat a particular string, in this case a space, by a number of times. So we're going to do it by the difference between the length of our title and the length of the maximum length that we're going to do it. Divide it in half, -1, just to make sure it all fills in nicely. So if I press F10, then the filler will be a space, or a group of spaces. If I hover the mouse over it, as you can see, it's probably about 10 spaces there that we're going to pack each side of the title to fill in here. So that's our filler there and there, and then of course the title will be in the middle. So we've worked out what the filler is, and then we've got just an index variable set up here, and then we're going to print out the UTF-8 character to make up the corner of the box, plus a repeated string for the whole of the length -2 to allow for the 2 corner pieces, and that will draw our line. So we can actually demonstrate that now by printing that line, and there we are, it appears down here. And then we've got the kind of outer line with the filler plus the title plus the filler all joined in together. So if we now print that one, then we've got that across here. And then finally we're going to put this kind of not quite a corner piece, but a joining piece on the side for the next line with a row of parallel lines there. So again, let me just press F10 to draw that one. So now we're starting to draw the actual menu from here to here. So again, we're going to go through it in a for loop. Now, depending on whether the index, which we set at 1 here, is less than 10 or not. Reason for that is that up to 10 we want 4, I think it's 4, it might be 5 spaces in front of the number, then the bracket, whereas if it was greater than 10 we'd only want 4, Reason being, if I bring that back in, that we would have all the brackets lined up vertically down here. Even when it starts to get to 10, 11, 12, the numbers would start to fill up this space, but still keep the brackets there, just to make it look neat. So that's what that one does. So if I go through this loop, we'll press F10 again. So it's going to draw the first one with the padding, of course. This is just fixing, I didn't mean to step into that. I think it's Shift F10 to step out. I can't remember. Project, step out. Oh, it's Control F10 on it or something. Okay. Control F10 again. There we go. So we're now hopefully going to print that. Yes, there we go. And we do the same now with each of the lines in here that we're going to fill them up. So the bit that was causing me some grief is this item pad right, so that we're taking for each of the items, like brilliant or whatever word is in there, we're padding it to the right with some spaces. And of course that again is not a built-in Lua function, it's one that we've had to write. So we're using these keyboard UTF-8 length ones here and a pad right one here, just simply to do that. So it's all a bit of a headache. I've put the explanations of how they work in there, so you can look at that for yourself. The reason we have to use the UTF-8 length is because we are dealing with UTF-8 characters. Lua by default assumes one character is 1 byte. So when you're trying to measure the length of a string containing UTF-8 characters, these particular characters take up 3 bytes per character. So it totally messes up the normal length functions of Lua. So this was done to compensate for it using this UTF-8 library. So yeah, great fun. Right, so back where we were. Yes, so we've drawn, or we're drawing these ones here. Then finally, once we get to here, we're going to draw the bottom bars across, and then we're going to get the using the get integer input to get the number from. So let's go as far as that. Let's press that and go down to that point. There we are. So we've got all the menu filled in, and we're now going to do our get integer bit to do the bottom bit here. So I think I'll just let that run now. So we'll press that. So again, type the number of your choice. If I press enter, it doesn't allow that. Let's put in, unfortunately, because we're running not in a console, it makes this lot move up, but I can't do anything about that. That's just the way it works. So I will put a correct answer, which of course is 1, and it just says user thinks this utility is brilliant. And there we are. It's telling us that the debugging session is finished, but that's okay. So that's how the menu thing works in the Lua version. So that's, I think, covered everything. So next time round we'll be doing C#, which is 10 times easier. So hopefully we'll get that through that quite quickly.